How does the government plan to balance the need for broad tax rises with the risk of slowing economic growth in the current high inflation and interest rate environment?
Well, before we get into the economic side of it, the political side of it is I cannot see Rachel Reeves being in the same position this time next year. Because this time last year, she came back, she broke a manifesto pledge, an election manifesto pledge that she would not raise taxes. She did that last year. And she said she will never do it again. She's come back this year. She would definitely raise taxes on 26th of November. I cannot, and we know with a slow economic growth, there will be a shortfall next year also. And even the shortfall might be more than 20, 30, even up to 50 billion. So next year we'll have the same scenario, but it cannot be the same person. So my prediction is we will have a different chancellor this time next year, but it will be so disastrous that I predict we will have an early election in 2027. So that's the political side of it. On the economic side of it, the problem is, which I hope we get into it, the government is not addressing the causes of slow economic growth. They're not addressing that. The reason why they're not addressing it, because they don't know the causes. They are not familiar with the causes. And even if you tell them what the causes are, they don't have a solution for them.
Well, then what specific tax measures are under consideration to create the fiscal headroom Rachel Reeves mentioned? How might those impact the income groups and businesses, different income groups?
Generally, any tax rises means people would have less money in their pocket. And she's saying this is a budget for growth. It is like I saying to you, by taking money out of your pocket, I'm making you richer. No, it's the other way around. If I put money in your pocket, I make you richer. So this slogan, budget for growth, it just doesn't make sense when you're taking money out of people's pocket and you're telling them you're growing. Obviously, there are three ways they could tax: is VAT, is the income tax, and national insurance. These are the three areas that she would be. Most probably it'll be income tax. I don't think she will go for VAT. It'll be mostly on income tax, and then it'll be mostly on the higher incomes, on the wealth makers. And the wealth makers are leaving this country anyway. So this time next year will be even less wealth makers in the United Kingdom, and there'll be even less money for the government.
Well, she spoke about increasing the taxes so as not to get back to austerity of before, but how does increasing taxes differ from the previous austerity measures? What lessons has the government learned from those earlier periods then?
Well, I have a bias. I am a member of Conservative Party, but I would declare that, in my opinion, George Osborne, the Conservative Chancellor between 2010 and 2016, was one of the worst chancellors we've ever had. He introduced austerity, which was absolutely wrong strategy. When he was declaring austerity for United Kingdom, China was investing $100 billion dollar a year in its infrastructure. And they had a plan of 5 trillion to invest 5 trillion into their infrastructure. That's why the economy grew. So what I'm trying to say is, by referring to austerity, this is like long time ago. How far does she want to go back? And this is just an excuse. The reason why she brings up past like 15 years ago, 16 years ago, is because she has, again, no solution. And it's very simple. All she has to do is seriously start deregulating and having an energy policy. The reason why we cannot attract inward investment because our energy costs are too high. If we had a proper energy policy where we could offer plenty of access to plenty of cheap energy, then we would attract a lot of manufacturing, a lot of industrial companies coming to UK, And also generally the inflation would drop. And once the inflation dropped, the interest rate would drop.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you mention that, it just goes over their head. They have no idea what is an energy policy, except net zero, obviously.
Mr. Mamian, what are the key then risks to public spending if the government fails to increase the tax revenues sufficiently, especially in sectors like healthcare and social services?
Well, the point is you could cut public spending, but then there is so much you could cut. The issue is growing the economy. Her whole speech was about how she was going to raise money through taxes. Hardly she mentioned what is a strategy to improve the economy, to have a high growth economy. She didn't mention that at all in her speech. And the whole entire government has no idea how to grow the economy. So going back to public spending, you could cut back some of the public spending. Obviously, we have a very generous welfare system that could be addressed. But then much easier it is to grow the economy. And it doesn't take that much to grow it. You only have to look at what President Trump is doing to grow the economy. He's going around the world, attracting foreign investment into US, offering them access to plenty of cheap energy, deregulation, and also access to a large market and everything else. But you hardly see this government doing that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've alluded to the international, the American and the international trade and trends, but given the global pressures on inflation, also in the US, and supply chains, how will the UK budget address both domestic economic stability and the international economic uncertainties?
Well, the instability, it comes from low economic growth at 1%. And the deficit, the shortfall in the government is 5%. So there is a minus 4% that government is having a shortfall every year. So that is being added to the loan. Again, I go back. It is to grow that 1% to 5, 6, or even 8%. And for that, the way to do it is actually by deregulation. I mean, cutting back 80% of regulations, going to basic only 20%. And that's the best form of tax cut you could give to businesses and allow businesses to grow, set people free. The problem is people on the left of politics, the governments, they think they know better. And they have so many regulations in terms of consumer protection that take your freedom and my freedom away. And they tell us what to eat, how to travel, what to do, what to wear, and how to spend our money. And that's not a free world. And everyone thought this was sorted out in 1980s, that market economy is the king. But again, we get backdoor to socialism through regulations. Regulations means communism and socialism. That's what it is.
Well, then, how does the government plan to communicate these hard choices to the public to maintain the trust and the social cohesion during potentially a very difficult economic adjustment?
Well, thank you for your question. You mentioned the word trust. Right now, there is no trust. As I mentioned, there is no. Rachel Reeves has lost a lot of credibility last year. She lost a lot more credibility today. And I don't think she can continue beyond 6 months. So that's the way I see it. And once a chancellor loses credibility, that's 50% of the government. And I don't think they have solutions. Even the next chancellor, I don't think they have a solution because they're not committed to these changes. To have a, they're not even committed to have a energy policy right now. They're still committed to net zero. They talk about it that they want to remove it, but they never remove it. So we still are paying so much for our energy. So they're not committed, they're not serious about it. They're more interested about politicking. And also nowadays, it's all about short-term policies. They come in, they have a plan, they stay in office for 2 or 3 years, they make a name for themselves and they go. Otherwise, they don't have a mission like previous generations of politicians where they were on a mission to improve the society.
Mhm.